The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the brothers.
Hey everybody, this is Greg with the Brothers Wisp number 150. I actually saw or did I listen? I listened to a podcast about auctioneers. And so I was thinking it'd be fun to start reading a lot more stuff and kind of auctioneer speak. I already go pretty quick as it is. Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole. Anyway, let's jump into it. Today we have the one, the only, the Nick Arellano.
Hey everybody.
You take so long to say the mouth words. You're like waving to the camera when most people just listen.
You can't just give it to him right away. You got to make him wait a little bit.
Oh, like
Add the delay.
like Rocky Horror
Suspense.
Picture Show, the anticipation. Yeah, you got to make them
Yes.
wait. All right. Let's see what's cooking. No new patrons. And if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/brotherswisps. And you get access to the Patreon-only Slack where all the cool kids hang out. Way smarter than me. I'm going to be putting probably a little bit more time into it because I'm off for the next 2 weeks. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
That's nice.
It is nice. It's incredibly nice. And I 100% do not take it for granted. I appreciate it every single time it comes around, knowing that I'm not going to get called and my vacation's going to get interrupted by something going down or broken. I was talking to Miller, I guess, was talking at me, and he was saying like Thursday night or Thursday evening, I guess, the road crews were like pile driving in big I-beams, and they hit, I guess, a good chunk of fiber outside of a data center, and it like adversely affected their entire town. So that dude's been having a bad day. And yeah, I was like, the place I used to work sent me a bunch of notifications about how they had transient power stuff. And I was like, oh, it's too bad for them. It's amazing. Anyway, now that I'm done flexing on you guys, let's read out the sponsor stuff really quick. It is brought to you by Sonar, a scalable and intuitive and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. Learn more at Sonar.Software. I was almost breaking into my auctioneer practice, and I didn't want to screw it up. All right, so you got nice and pace. That's what the people want.
Practice.
We also have tower coverage. It's your RF propagation system to empower your network, real-time data metrics, enable your coverage area, reaching your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. This data is used to scientifically plan your network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. I heard that they dumped a bunch of stuff. I think, what did he say? Like 60 gigs of raw data or something like that. So they're
That might have been compressed, but yeah.
Beefing it up.
Data.
The new hotness is in there. All right, Nick, we are coming up on the holidays. I am absolutely in vacation mode, so there's almost nothing on the list. So, brother, you better start vamping. You better start coming up with stuff on the spot. I better hear some interesting color commentary. Keep it moving. Don't let me down. So, first on the list
Pressure.
is, well, plenty of pressure. We have ROS version 1, 7.1, I should say, and it's stable. Stable. You put some air quotes in there. Yeah. I've heard some reports of stability issues from several different people. I saw one of the reports as I can't remember what hardware they were doing it on, but they're like, I upgraded and now my license got blown away. So they're having to fix that, or not everything is migrating over, like on 6x installs going up to 7, but it's like you expect some growing pains, right, between major revisions like that. So that stuff I would expect. What I have heard is stability issues when trying to use Winbox, like data's not pulling, you have to do reboots, you have to do weird things like that. And I've heard from some folks that if you just stick to the CLI, you're going to have a better time. So I guess for you 7.1 pioneers wanting to hit the stable version, and whenever you install the stable version, it shows up as testing and like system packages or whatever. I guess they just took the testing package and then just swapped it right over, unless maybe they just forgot to update that little tidbit in there. But I know Andrew Thrift wanted to be here, is unable, and I know me saying that is going to break a lot of people's hearts because everybody loves that Kiwi accent. I think that's really what it comes down to. You power couple, right? That accent with that hair, it's pretty unstoppable. Although I am talking to a guy with some pretty fantastic hair, so I don't know. You just don't have the accent. You sound too Yankee, too Northern. That's your problem.
I'll work on it.
All right. Well, anything in particular in 7.1 stable? Any thoughts, opinions, ideas? Have you actually thrown it on anything? I still have yet to. Although I was thinking about over the break putting it on all my home stuff. So I've got several devices at the house. I was thinking about putting it in there just to.
It is on my home stuff.
But do you have it on some of your home stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's not on any like ISP networks that I'm involved with at this point. Most of the complications are involved with routing filters, those sort of things. So some of the issues people were having were, one, probably misunderstanding of the routing filters, like the new way that things are laid out. By default, things are dropped by default. So if you didn't have routing filters, which was pretty common in a lot of networks that I've seen, in especially for things like OSPF, there's not a lot of filtering involved there. So a lot of their stuff that got translated over, nothing worked because by default it blocks everything. That's one major thing. I believe what Thrift was talking about, there's some routing functionality that when configured in Winbox doesn't work right. But if you do it via the CLI, I guess it works. I haven't done a ton of testing, but I've been doing a lot of stuff with my control the last couple weeks. So I wanted to get my whole house on version 7 to see how that's going to change as far as CLI, but it looks like pretty much everything's backwards compatible without the new CLI syntax where everything's ///. So that's pretty interesting. I haven't played with the REST API and Let's Encrypt stuff yet, but I probably will after I get through the initial onboarding stuff. But my whole house is on version 7 just to see. Everything seems fine. I haven't had any crashes, stability issues. So
I think I want to say Splinks, the kind of CRM billing system. Those guys, I think they put out a notice saying, "Hey, version 7.1. If you guys upgraded that, it's like the API, there were significant enough changes where it like doesn't work. So you probably want to hang on a minute." So I guess that's, I mean, I didn't dig into it too much, but I guess there was some specific functionality that Splinks utilized in the API that changed in some way. So I guess proceed with caution if you've got some API utilization in your environment, or at least, obviously test, and then test some more, before you throw this stuff into production.
Yeah. But you test in your lab, because the more that people test and the more bug reports get filed, the faster we'll move towards actual stable, actual long-term, which will be fun. So we'll see. I mean, obviously MikroTik can't test for every possible situation people are using the kit in. So yeah, it's not stable, but the more that people test it in the lab and file bug issues, they can probably jump on it a lot faster now that they've got it listed as stable released. So hopefully that means they're going to do a bunch of waves of bug fixes and try to actually drive it to stable. So the more that people interact with it, find things that don't work right, find things that are broken in the Winbox and support it, it'll be better for everybody. Just don't put it on your production network. Not yet.
But right, yeah, like you said, if nobody beta tests this thing, nobody puts it through their, because obviously MikroTik can't think of every single scenario, right? And there's absolutely no way they could test everybody's use case. So, you're obviously going to have probably something unique that they're not testing for in your environment. So, put it through its paces. Help everybody out. Help me out. Help me to help you. All right. So, version 7. We'll do some more updates. I get probably by I don't know. I was going to say by the next podcast, but that's only 2 weeks. We're hitting the holiday season. Everything's going to slow down. So it might actually be a month or two before we see any significant, any gains, boys, coming out of version 7. So let's hope. I'll be optimistic. How about you?
I think it's going to be fine. Just some kinks. I mean, just the filters, and they rewrote a bunch of important stuff like MPLS, IPv6. There's features that didn't exist before, like ECMP. There's going to be a lot of stuff that wasn't possible before that now is, and a lot of the stuff is rewritten. So it's going to be a lot different as far as just getting stuff programmed correctly in the first place to test it. So I'm excited. It means once we do hit stable, hopefully we'll see new hardware, and we'll see a lot of performance improvements overall across the platform. So that'll be pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. Just gotta wait.
I'm looking forward to that too. So I also saw that they do a new product announcement. I think so. Have we already talked about this? I'm not sure. It's the 2116-12D-4S Plus. Did we talk about that yet, or is this brand new?
I mean, we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it in the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it is a new CCR device. Let's pull up the specs so I don't lie to anybody. It's ARM-based, 64-bit ARM-based. CPU core count looks like there's 16 of them. They're running at 2 gigahertz a piece, so that's pretty beefy for individual CPUs, which to me says it's going to have good BGP performance. It does have layer 3 hardware offloading built into it, right? So your layer 3 forwarding is going to be able to like go through ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, which are going to mean you're not routing inside the CPU, so it's going to be more efficient. Let's see, 16 gigs of RAM, 128 megs of storage. ROS version 7 only. They just announced those things, so I'm not really sure when they're going to ship. They have, 13 gig ports. Are they SFP Plus or are they standard copper Ethernet? They're copper Ethernet, aren't they? Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they do have, it's 4 SFP Plus 10 gig ports, and the rest are copper.
Nice. That's a pretty nice hardware complement. I'm interested in this one. I think they're saying the street price, suggested retail price $995, so less than $1,000. So that was, I mean, that's in like 1036 range, right? As far as price goes, isn't 1036 somewhere around $1,000?
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because either they really want to move away from Tylera totally and have all these ARM replacements, because they're coming in at a price point where performance is pretty similar. Obviously, there's less cores, but they're beefier. Power draw is kind of heavy. Looks like max power consumption without attachment says about 60 watts. That's pretty substantial. But it's got a lot in it. It's got a lot of RAM. I think this is one of the highest just general core clock speeds of any of them that they've released so far. This is kind of a killer router. And they removed container support from version 7 temporarily. But in the marketing material for this, they're talking about how, because it has 16 cores, 16 gigs of RAM, you can run an NVMe solid state hard drive in there, that it would be good for running containers on there, which you can't do right now until they bring it back. But that would definitely be interesting to have a nice little 1U appliance with that much horsepower for some containers aside from just doing routing stuff. So this is a really interesting product in general.
Here in their marketing, they say they're actually comparing it to the CCR 1036, and they're saying it can easily double the performance at 16 cores versus the 36. So outperform it. Oh, they're saying by double. I'm not sure performance of what. Maybe
people
overall
can want
throughput.
Something with more than 2 SFP Plus ports for a long time that isn't the 1072, which is, I guess, one of the least stable of the Cloud Core series. But it says 4 10 gig ports, which is amazing, and all that horsepower, and the price is awesome. Like, I was expecting this to be significantly more expensive, but
yeah,
here we are.
This form factor is exactly what I want. This is like in my MDFs.
Yeah, hotspot power supplies.
Yeah,
I don't know why they didn't do it with this one, but
my MDF right now, I could really utilize. So I would utilize the majority of those copper ports, and then having the 2 extra SFP ports would be extremely useful. Not to mention the additional boost in power. I don't necessarily need it at this site, but I'd rather have more power than I need than less power than I need for sure. So especially at that price point, it's like a nice even transition from the 1036. And I mean, port complement is very close. It's just you get 2 extra SFP Plus ports. So what's not to love in there?
it's nice too because having 4 10 gig ports, it makes it easier for you to do like a northbound and southbound like LACP channel. So if you have like 2 10 gig ports and you're like you have that tromboning effect if you do anything that's switch centric. So this having those 4 ports is pretty substantial, and I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I like the 4 ports. like you said, for redundancy, right? Going into the network, you've got redundancy on the 10 gig side, but also now you've got carrier interfaces, right? So you're upstream, you're gonna be able to, pull it right in there and land on a 10 gig port. So right now, like on a 1036, if you're pulling in 10 gig and you want to bring it into the rest of your network, you have to compromise because you've only got 2 ports, right? So no redundancy on the inside or on the outside. Not to necessarily say that in most places you're going to have that external redundancy. I guess it just depends on the environment. Like if you're in a data center environment, sure, you'll have that redundancy. But if this is like a site router somewhere, then yeah, the odds are you're probably not going to have it coming in from your upstream. But it gives you options, right? So I always enjoy options because I always tend to need it, right? Like something will happen, there'll be some snafu, and it's really awesome to have it. So very interested. Was this the one that they did the video for where they interrupted halfway through and they had Normans like pop in and say, "Oh, it's got killer BGP action" or something like that?
Yes,
yeah,
that is the one.
Sweet. So yeah, they were. What were they saying? Like 6 times faster on the BGP performance. I guess that's like full convergence. So like pulling in a full table, they're trying to say it's 6 times faster than version 6. So that's pretty cool.
And you've got a 2 gigahertz clock count and 16 cores, and the BGP for some portions are multi-threaded now. So this is probably going to be seriously substantial. And it's interesting because depending on the next SKUs that come out, these are borderline sort of towards like an x86 avenue. I have a feeling that pretty soon they're going to be able to provide routers that are going to have less need to actually build a server for traffic, just based on power draw. A lot of these CCRs you're able to convert to DC by putting in, because usually the board takes like 12 or 24 volts depending on which generation of the CCR. I mean, you can't really do that with a server or like something like a Maxwave Vengeance. So some of these products, depending on what the next like CPU core count and stuff is, it's kind of approaching the point where you don't really need to spend money on an actual 1U server. You can actually just use something with an ASIC. So that's pretty exciting because that's not really easy to swallow when you've got to buy a handful of 1U server appliances. But these are going to be pretty comparable, less power draw, convertible to DC. So that's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I'm excited. Simplicity. I'm all for simplicity, right? I've just got one thing that I have to maintain. And like you were saying, like the x86 boxes, most of those guys are running some kind of virtualization engine on top, right? And then you're running the CHR on the inside. So that means that's just one more layer of complexity you got to maintain. And, if it is just running natively MikroTik on the MikroTik hardware, theoretically it's one less hoop to jump through, right? So fewer things to go wrong, one would hope.
Yeah, I'm sure people still use servers for like route reflectors and stuff like that, but at least for forwarding traffic, even tunnel termination, all kinds of stuff at the edge, you'll be able to use something with, apparently, from what I've heard, I think even Thrift has mentioned, they've got a lot of other switch chips either coming out or available to MikroTik to use in new products. So, we might be seeing those 100 gigabit devices with, ASIC chips and lots of cool functionality when the chip shortage is over with. So hopefully we can push MikroTik to stabilize the software and get that stuff running great so they can start focusing on new hardware products finally and maybe some new wireless stuff.
That's something Thrift has always been doing. He watches the ASICs they stick in there and he's like, oh, by the way, it can do this and this and this. Please enable that stuff. So yeah. He's always sort of nagging him about that. Yeah, like when you say new wireless stuff, what kind of new wireless stuff are you interested in?
Everything. I mean, just MikroTik's operating system in general, as far as API integration, and now pretty soon here with the Let's Encrypt support or even just using a self-signed certificate, being able to interact with all this equipment in a standardized way over like a REST API, being able to have control depending on what chips go in there, as far as QoS, prioritizing stuff. A lot of the WISP equipment, generally across most of the most popular brands, you don't have a lot of control on QoS or how stuff is marked. It's kind of all handled in the software and it's not documented well. So being able to have full control over quality of service across the RF link to prioritize management protocols, stuff like that. I mean, having the encryption chips on board, they've always had fiber ports on their radios. So I'd like to see what they might want to do going forward with a brand new operating system for outdoor and indoor wireless. Even indoor wireless, they're still far behind where a lot of other people are as far as new wireless standards and capacity. And I like Capspan a lot too. So if they can, bring Wave 2 and onward, I know that they just released some Wave 2 stuff in the wireless, which is standalone. It's not caps manageable, but hopefully new like Wi-Fi 6 and that generation of wireless standard stuff with new hardware, new form factors, and the software would be pretty exciting.
Cool. Do you have a pretty big use case for them?
I mean, I use it personally for all my wireless. It would be nice to have
I do too.
The newer features, the higher channel widths. But, I'm working on software to manage all this stuff. It would be nice to have, I don't like Unify, but Unify has like Wi-Fi 6 access points and a lot of cool functionality. But having more options to make it justifiable to have either a customer or somebody be like, yeah, put wireless in the enterprise or put wireless in the home. It's not as compelling when there's other products out there that have more capacity or more just raw speed test aside from manageability. So we'll see what happens. I hope they take it seriously. They've got lots of developers now for a new operating system. So I'm excited to see what they decide to do. Because at this point, if the operating system stabilizes and they have the team that they have through this growth period that they went through and they have all these new chips available, they're kind of poised to do whatever they want. They can kind of just take over those markets, assuming the software stabilizes and they don't go too crazy with stuff. But it's going to be pretty compelling to have containers, routers, switches, access points, hopefully not phones, hopefully not cameras.
I know you were talking about, or rather earlier we were talking about version 7 stabilizing, and truly getting stable. And I just think, well, as soon as it does, we're going to start running containers on these things. We're just going to break it all over. I mean, we're going to be introducing all of the chaos theory into the equation. So it's I wonder if MikroTik is prepared for the deluge of support calls they're going to start getting as people start running Pi-hole on their router OS boxes and it starts breaking this or breaking that, or they don't have it configured right. Or
I mean, people are kind of doing that already with like Ubiquiti products, because I think their stuff's still Viata behind the scenes, but it's Linux. So like if you have an edge router or whatever, you can SSH into it, install Linux packages. You can install, like I think they have Avahi or something installed in there, which is the multicast repeater. So like people are already kind of doing that, or they're manually configuring the JSON file for the Ubiquiti stuff to get it to do stuff that the software doesn't let you do. So people are already finding ways around weird stuff like that. So at least with MikroTik, you get like containers, like clean containers that, yeah, you might exhaust like memory or something, but if you're running these tiny little containers to supplement some of the things that other vendors can do, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal with responsible usage, of course. But people are already doing it with other equipment. But this would be probably a much cleaner, simpler approach to kind of plop a container in and add it to a bridge on and get it IP'd. I think it's going to be a lot cleaner than the alternatives.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to start playing with. I can think of nothing but possibilities of all kinds of interesting stuff. We're going to be doing so in the newer versions of Ansible, like AAP 2.1. They have this ability to, they call it mesh, the functionality where, the controller will actually reach out to these execution nodes to actually fire off all the job execution inside of containers. Like that was kind of the new hotness, that even though it's, containers is nothing new, right? That's how it's going to start doing the execution environments. So it'd be pretty cool to have some like MikroTiks out at remote sites and have them as like remote execution nodes. It just pops over there, spins up some containers, performs whatever automation you need to that site, and then, ephemerally disappears. So that would be pretty neat to like show some people executing that stuff. I just, I'm always trying to think of like demos that I could come up with that it doesn't necessarily have to be something somebody would implement, but if it kind of stretches their brain and the way they think and,
Possible.
yeah, breaks them outside the box a little bit, like, wow, that's wild to think we could do that. I wonder if we could do this or that. And then, you could start,
Just the tip of the ice.
you start brainstorming, and you get them moving, get them thinking. I was talking to some guys this week. Yeah, it's been like a really busy 10 days. I was talking to some guys this week, a petroleum company. And it's funny, so many of these petroleum companies are basically WISPs inside because they have so much stuff out in the field, right? They've got so much data acquisition they have to do, like well sites or whatever it happens to be. They got a ton of sensors on those things now, and they're pulling all those back in. A lot of them are using Cambium gear. That's the vast majority of them are using.
If you look at a lot of the websites for the vendors, I've been looking at like Telegraph Technologies for the day job stuff. So we've been looking at like Ciclu and Cambium, and it's been a while since I looked at their actual like marketing material on their website. And it's surprising how many of them have like a whole enterprise and like SCADA systems like section of the website where some of the stuff, it looks like it's the same radios, but they're like rebranded for like SCADA system deployments as well as like security cameras. And so some of it looks like it's like PMP 450 gear, but some extra encryption stuff for the traffic going over them. They're just making probably gobs of money off that. And I think there's a few like higher end backhaul companies that was exclusively like oil companies and companies like that were paying for really expensive license links. So I guess there's a huge market because even Ciclu's got some stuff on their website for like in-city camera deployments and like those types of remote things. Apparently it's a huge market, so that makes sense.
These guys I was talking to, they were doing Cambium for endpoint aggregation, and then backhaul they were doing all Dragon Wave stuff. So it's like they weren't jacking around. They're like, basically, we don't have anything in unlicensed frequencies. Because, one, they've got a lot of money. But number two, if they, and this is how somebody relayed it to me like years ago. They said, if you make a mistake at your job, it's probably, things are bad, but, it's all right. He's like, if we have a bad day at our job, it's like front page of the newspaper, so, so they try and stay on top of that stuff, and they don't want some Yahoo cranking up some 5G or 5 gigahertz stuff next to them and blasting in their frequency, and they just lose something at a site that needs, connectivity for control or whatever. So it's just a different animal. But I digress. I kind of went completely off topic there.
We got a light list, so you might as well.
That's the idea. Vamp, brother. But yeah. So it was just what was it? Automation on these things. I think that would be a really cool use case to like say, hey man, you've got these things out in the field. Watch it. Watch us use them as remote execution nodes. So in lieu of having to install a server at this remote site, now this can just be your remote execution nodes, right? I can just pop in there and perform the automation from there, and then Bob's your uncle, you're done. Because these things are, in my opinion, more stable and robust than the server environment. Because one, you talked about, higher power draw, which means you have to have more backup, but also they're just more susceptible to the elements for the most part. I mean, you can get hardened servers and stuff, right? But for the most part, if you're grabbing a pizza box off of, Amazon or, Newegg or wherever you're going to get your server, eBay for that matter, it doesn't matter. It's going to be more susceptible to the elements than, say, one of these router boards will. Also, the router boards seem to be able to handle temperature extremes a lot better than most of the server infrastructure I've seen as well. So,
and being able to easily convert them to DC is a huge deal. Like trying to find server power supplies that aren't just obnoxiously expensive and specifically for like negative 48 volts. There's not a lot of options, but with most of the microtics, if you know what you're doing, like it's not too bad. It's usually just a little wire harness kit or a DC to DC converter. So being able to run this off a battery, it's potentially more reliable than having to use a huge inverter and stuff to try to power AC powered servers. So,
So speaking of like backing stuff up and power and stuff, thanks to the snowpocalypse last year, we had the rolling blackouts here in Texas, which was a lot of fun. So
I heard it was a little bad.
yeah, generally either you straight lost power or you were susceptible to rolling blackouts. Although a couple of my friends were on they happened to be the same little grid section as like a hospital or whatever. So those
got lucky.
Those 4-letter word folks got to keep their power, which was nice for them. Good for them. I don't begrudge anybody anything. So Miller, a while back, was talking about how they don't use generators really anymore. They use these blue eddies, like this is basically a big lithium battery pack that they can cart around and plug in. And so I looked those jokers up and I was like, man, it's they're not exactly cheap, but they're also very functional and reliable. A really cool thing about them too is you plug them in, DC port in the front, you're going to get a DC out. I think you can get 5 volts, you can get 12 volts. I think it's even got like a car cigarette lighter socket on there if you want to pull out on that. But also on the back, it's got an inverter, so it can spit out AC as well. My favorite part is it can you can like be running off the AC and you have no power, and that's great, and it performs, and that's fine. And when utility comes back on, the charger will kick on and actually charge it while you're still pulling out of the box. So it actually can sort of act as a pseudo UPS if you want it to in the interim, which is really nice. Because I looked at some of the cheaper ones, and you can either use the AC outlets or you can charge, but it wouldn't let you do both at the same time. I think some of them actually use the inverter as part of the charging system. So it just reverses it. So instead of inverting and going out AC, it I don't know, I guess in the infrastructure, it will route it through that AC line and just do a reverse inversion and kick it to DC to charge the batteries and stuff. So this one, a little bit pricier, but you get that kind of convenient functionality. So for us, snowpocalypse hits, I'm going to put it kind of centralized in our house. Luckily, we have a fireplace that's gas fireplace, so we can heat our house so we can stay warm. But then I can run it out to my cable modem on my router, which will keep this stuff. Truck in my laptop battery actually will last a while, but I can also run an extension cord in here to run my monitors and stuff. And then the most essential piece, we can run the TV in the living room, our flat screen, pretty much indefinitely through the rolling blackouts. So looking forward to not having to deal with that. It was really stressful for me because I was still pretty new, and I was about to run my very first workshop solo, and we were going through the rolling blackout. So I had to rig a bunch of weird stuff using USB booster battery packs, and while it got me through, I was like, this is not something I want to do again. Of course, now I'm in the position where I would just be like, bro, we're having rolling blackouts, let some other poor schmuck take this project over. But back then, it was something that I wanted to work, I wanted to prove myself, so I was doing it. But I guess I still could, I wouldn't have to worry about it. So hey, I'm prepared. How are you prepared? Although you guys are basically indigenous, I think Eskimo is not the word you're supposed to use anymore, right? What do you call them? First Nation up there, snow people? You're accustomed to this, right? Inside your igloos?
We have stable power, though. We're used to weather, so, basically when there's heavy snow, heavy ice, whatever, trucks and salt go out, all the major roads are already paved. Most of the counties, or at least at the city level, they all have trucks. They all go out there. So it's usually not much of a problem because every year there's going to be snow, there's going to be ice. There's still accidents, but for the most part, most of the major roadways are handled right off the bat. They're already putting salt down as soon as it starts to snow. So it's not too big of a problem. And the grid's pretty stable, so we don't have too much power issues. Whereas in California recently, it's not the greatest. The power company out there, they've got really long power lines between poles. And some of the stuff is to the point where as soon as the wind gets above a certain threshold, they start shutting off chunks of grid to try to mitigate fires because I don't know if they just don't have enough structural support on the wires across some of the lengths that sometimes they have poles drop. So they just preemptively shut the grid off just to minimize risks. So there's lots of power outages.
Do they do that when there's wildfires and stuff like that as well?
I believe so. I mean, especially with, I guess sometimes there's occasional power crisis scenarios where they have to kind of shut off certain areas of the state to conserve power. So they have like notices that go out to residents that your power is going to be shut off from this time to this time. It's wild.
Yeah, occasionally in the heat of the summer, we would do that here. That's only happened a couple of times in like, you know, well, I don't know, I'd say like it's 15 years or something. So it doesn't happen that frequently. And to be honest, like this ice rolling blackout thing was the first time we've had that, I think. But they're basically saying we fixed nothing in the grid, so be prepared for it to happen again. So here we are. We'll be all right. I'm not worried about it. It's just, we're prepared this go around. We tried to make sure to, we were like, you know what? Don't wait till the last minute to figure out what we're going to do for this. Let's go ahead and do that ahead before everybody else tries to do the exact same thing at the last second. So we've got all our stuff. We're hunkered down. We're ready to go.
Just get a bunch of solar. The battery banks.
I think the solar would just be covered in ice like during that. I don't know that it would necessarily help too much, but with the rolling nature and its charging rate, I think it would be fine. Like
sure, there's ways you could de-ice the panels. If grid's down, you got solar coverage.
Yeah, I mean you could probably rig something out, but it doesn't hard down. All right, it's just rolling at least for now. I mean, like I know, like my mom in Waco, it went hard down for 4 days, I think, and then my in-laws in Axtell, I think they were down for like a week and a half, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it took time for some of those guys, and hard down. We were thinking about getting a generator too, but I don't know, we didn't this go around. I think we'll be all right. We'll see what happens. We shall see. Beat that one to death. What else do we have on here? I saw a little article. I didn't read a lot about it, but there was apparently like a Ubiquiti developer or maybe an ex-developer trying to extort the company. Did you read about that?
A little bit. I guess it was one of their lead people in the cloud area who managed the resources in AWS, who basically did a big data dump, sent it in as like an anonymous person with a threat that they've got some sort of backdoor exploitive access. And then apparently at some point, the employee in question was accessing the stuff through a VPN, and the VPN happened to drop at some point, and there was logs in the AWS infrastructure showing the IP address, which they used to tie that kind of the anonymous information, like username information logs to him, and he tried to argue it, but they nailed him. Because of that whole VPN thing, they were able to cross-reference the logs to prove that was definitively him.
Oh man, they said he was using Surfshark. So avoid Surfshark, everybody, if you're gonna try and extort money. No, I wonder why he wasn't using Tor or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, just because you're an AWS cloud person doesn't mean you're on the up and up of stuff like that. That was probably not the best thing to decide to do.
God, he was demanding $2 million too. Oof.
Wild.
Oof.
It was good to know that there wasn't actually an exploit or vulnerability or something in their cloud infrastructure, that it was just somebody on the inside. And what was even worse, apparently, is the employee who was trying to extort the company was actually assigned to the case.
No way.
To look at trying to get into the system. So it's like, how could you do your job well when you could potentially reveal that it's you, because you're the one that has to hunt you down?
Brilliant.
So that was wild. Yeah, because apparently he was the lead of the AWS or cloud hosting department. So that's who was assigned to handle the case. It's oh wait, that's me. What do I do about this now?
Facing a maximum sentence of 37 years. What else? It also says Ubiquiti stock price fell by about 20% from that announcement. Oof. Amounting to losses of over $4 billion in market capitalization. So. Oof. Yeah. They're going to turn the screws on that guy if they can.
Get over.
He is screwed. Wacky wild, man. It's a weird world we live in, is it not?
Definitely. That was either he was smart enough to pull it off, or he was just way out of his. Because that's something like once you decide you're going to do that, you got to follow through because Ubiquiti's not going to mess around.
Yeah.
Clearly, they're not.
Something I heard somebody say one time is never do anything that you think you're going to have to explain on a form. Yeah. So you get in trouble, they're going to have to fan you a form. You're going to have to explain why you did that. It's like never do anything like that. I would definitely say that is one that might have a form associated with it that you don't want to explain. So yeah, avoid that if you possibly can.
Or several.
All right. What else is interesting? So a question, like we were toying around with something and it kind of prompted me to think about the podcast I'm listening to right now. Are you an avid podcast listener or are you just an avid podcast guest, Nick?
I do listen to podcasts periodically. They're mostly developer type podcasts and recently some true crime stuff.
What specifically? What are you into?
Yeah.
I don't listen to any of that. I'm just curious.
Like for the true crime stuff. It's one that my wife listens to a lot. I think it's called Morbid. It's basically they go through the case of like various serial killers, and they go through some of the case information, some stuff from like their background, like some of the stuff that they did. It's wild.
You know what's so funny is I used to be more fascinated by that stuff when I was younger. Now that I'm older, it kind of like, I don't know, man. It doesn't sit well with me anymore. It's like, I'm not sure why. I think it happened like after I had kids. I think just kind of like all that sort of like shifted my perception of things. Like it used to be fascinating to me and now it's like, I don't know, more on the disturbing side. What kind of developer stuff are you listening to?
I do a lot of development with PHP and a framework called Laravel, and so there's a very large community in there. So it's a bunch of developers in that circle talking about products they're working on and other stuff like that.
Are you going to guest on one of those?
So probably not. No, that's a huge community. They don't even know who I am. I don't even go to the conferences.
No time like the present. You can start now.
Maybe one day.
Okay. Well, let's see. I was curious. It's like, what do I listen to? I've got a lot on here that I almost never listen to, but then like if I'm traveling or whatever, I might pop one or two of those on there. I've got like, and some of these I used to listen to more, and then I just kind of, I don't know, fell out of fashion for me or whatever. But you know, like This American Life, I used to listen to that a little bit. Wait, Don't Tell Me. I used to have fun listening to that one. Manager Tools, I used to listen to that one a lot more, not so much anymore because I'm not a manager anymore. So it's like, I want to break from that. There's a comedy one called The Dollop, which is these two comedians, something and Gareth Reynolds, and the something guy, I can't remember his name. That's so crappy of me. But Gareth Reynolds. Anyway, the one guy reads like some historical version of something that happened, like just, you know, something that's crazy. And they always try to do like a turns out or a twist, like at the end. Like this last one was like this crazy story, and then like that guy was Johnny Appleseed. Like, no way, that's bonk. Like he just the craziest stuff, you know. And
Wow.
Gareth Reynolds, so they're both comedians, but Gareth Reynolds is like this amazing improv guy, and so he is just like riffing on everything that's coming up, and it's just, I don't know, it's completely bonkers. Let's see what else. Intelligence Squared Debate. That one's a lot of fun that I like listening to. It's like basically they'll pick these random topics. They'll have experts on both sides and they'll do a debate. They used to do it live and in person. And what they would do is they'd have an audience. Everybody would vote which direction they were leaning. And then after the debate was over, everybody would vote again. And whoever had the most people switch sides actually won. So it's really interesting to hear like discourse where there's no, you know, ad hominem, you know, where they're like attacking the person rather than their position, right? It's mostly just, you know, this is what I believe and, you know, countering each other's points. It's really civil and interesting. Of course, there's always 99% Invisible, right? Which is like a design architecture podcast, but goes further beyond that. And I think that's fascinating. Ear Hustle, still one of my favorites, recorded in San Quentin prison by the prisoners about prison life. It's really humanizing. It's super changed the way I think about like people and approach various situations. No Such Thing as a Fish. It's like this group of researchers for a television show over in the UK. They talk about crazy facts that they look up every week. What else do I have in here? No Sleep Podcast. Have you ever listened to that? Especially like spooky stories. On road trips, we listen to it like with the kids sometimes. That was fun. What else am I listening? What am I really listening to? One that I listen to a lot is a Taskmaster podcast because I love the show Taskmaster. And so every week they're like go back in time and they're going through all the episodes. And then when a new season comes on, they go through those. Off Menu, it's James Acaster and what's the other guy's name? I can only remember half of these people's names. It's ridiculous. But it's two comedians and they do this Off Menu thing where they have this dream restaurant where they like ask people to come up with their dream meal. So like my podcast that I do, the warm-up exercise, is like based off of that podcast. So I really dig that. One's a lot of fun. The Bald and the Beautiful. That's Trixie Mattel and Katya. Two of my favorite drag queens. They are some of the funniest people on the planet. And it is definitely not family friendly, but it is a wild ride every single time. So that was a lot of fun. That Happens. It's two of the guys, Spencer Crittenden and Jeppy Davis. They were on Harmontown, and they do a podcast together. That was a lot of fun. There was one called What Trump Can Teach Us About Con Law, and now it's like Roman Mars learns about con law. It's basically about constitutional law. I never really knew anything about it, but it's a really fascinating subject, kind of how it all works, and they sort of go through it every now and then. And then shout out to This Is It, actually. It's kind of a new one that I've started listening to. I'm going to interview this person, and so I started like digging in a little bit. I'm kind of digging on it. And then somebody in the Slack turned me on to a couple of new ones. One is Every Little Thing, which is, I don't know, it's like somebody calls in and asks a question, and then they find an expert and then get that person that called in and they have a conversation about. That's interesting. And then the way I heard it with Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. I've only listened to one episode, but it was pretty interesting. That guy's like easy to listen to. I don't know. He's a lot of fun. Those are my podcasts that I listen to. It's a lot more than you, Nick. So I feel far more accomplished than you.
You should. I mean, the day to day is really chaotic, and I feel like when I listen to something like a podcast, I want to like really pay attention to what they're saying, especially serious podcasts where sometimes they continue on the same type of stuff. So as it'd be focus and really give it the time that it deserves to listen to some of the podcasts the way that things have been going lately. So I would love to listen to more podcasts. I have a bunch of them that I have saved in my podcast listener thing. It's like Mac OS. It's synced to my phone. I'm like hundreds of episodes behind a bunch of stuff. So I'll definitely check out some of the ones you listed just to at least follow them. So maybe one day I'll be able to listen
to Bald and Beautiful, aren't you?
Oh, of course. That's the first one.
I love that one, dude. It's so bananas. Oh my gosh. One episode they had Katya and her mom were on it. It's like, oh my God. That's why he's a complete lunatic. Because his mom is like bonkers. Like, is just like crazy. Like, I don't know if I'm coming or going listening to that one. Like, it was just disorienting my brain. It was turning everything around. So that's a bizarre one. I think Mary would get a kick out of that one for sure.
He loves Katya.
Yeah.
And
they're
Trixie.
They're both nuts. What else? What shows are you watching right now? Anything interesting? I know you're so busy. You're like behind on everything.
I don't have a lot of time for entertainment, but I started watching the second season of The Witcher a little bit. One night I had some time, and then Mindhunter, which also started me a little bit down the path of the serial podcast.
I thought season one was pretty darn good. It kind of got weird at the end, but I never saw season two, so
it's pretty good. It's just interesting that the way people, I guess, when they're a psychopath or a sociopath as well, like those types of people, just how they frame the world and how matter of fact they are with some of the things that they've done when they talk about them. It's pretty chilling, especially when they've got like 140 plus IQ and you talk to them and they just seem like a normal person, very calm and collected, but just did some brutal stuff. And they just don't care, and they'll love to talk to you about it, gruesome detail. It's just
Well, I've always heard
freaky.
everybody's got a story. I guess this is everybody's got a story, and maybe you don't want to hear it necessarily. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, when you don't feel any remorse and you would do it again, or when you were let out of prison, you go on another murder spree after you've convinced people that you've been reformed and changed, and they have to immediately throw you back in prison. It's like, oops. Like, people are out there that
Yeah.
can do some stuff.
I've
That freaks me out.
recently got on this little kick, and I think I want to. There was a book that was referenced. I think I want to listen to it, but it was a guy who was. Well, I listened to two. One guy is a deprogrammer for people who are in cults, and then one person was a cult member that got out, and they were basically just talking about those experiences and the various ways that. One, people are lured into cults. What kind of person is lured into a cult? What methodologies do they use to really indoctrinate them and to kind of bind them in there? And I don't know, just like all of that is like really fascinating to me. I think,
And that's what's cool about the show, is that it's before the FBI recognized that as a practice. And so it's like you're juggling the story of these like serial killers and interviewing them on top of the FBI becoming
Yeah,
accustomed to that practice and
like
looking
profiling,
at
right?
psychology in that manner. So it's really
Yeah,
Yeah.
like profiling serial killers. This is like the beginnings of that is what they're. And I'm assuming there's some fiction to this, but loosely based on truths. So it's pretty cool. And they do have some really good actors for the various killers. Like they cast that pretty well. The main detectives
it did.
are pretty well cast. I mean, it's a really well put together show. I thought it was really well done. I watched the new also we're talking about it, I watched the new Cowboy Bebop, the live action, and I apparently am the only person in North America that enjoyed it. Well, my oldest watched it with me and he enjoyed it as well. But yeah, like absolutely everybody else I talked to, they just they didn't like it. I think for the most part, it's because they can't separate themselves from the original anime. Pretend that that's like a standalone piece of media. Now this is something completely that you can't. But of course, I haven't seen it since I was in high school. So that was like 20 years ago. So it's really easy for me to draw that line. But I think they already said that it's not getting picked up for another season. So that's that. I enjoyed it while it lasted. You were talking about The Witcher. I was trying to watch that, but my oldest was behind, so we're trying to catch up a little bit here and there, and then I'm going to start watching it. Does it hold up pretty well compared to the first season?
Yeah, I mean, I was only able to watch it one evening, so I got like two episodes in. I don't know when I'm going to be able to watch it again, which means I'm probably going to have to rewatch those in a couple months. This is how it goes. But I played a lot of the games, and I started reading some books like a long time ago. But I always liked that genre, and so the first two episodes were pretty good. I forgot a ton of what happened the previous season, and the recap covered a bunch of stuff that was good. So it has the potential to be pretty good.
That's good.
Just
I
don't know when I'm
really
gonna be able
enjoyed
to
the
watch
first
it.
season. And then we're picking up most of the way through the first season and finishing it off. And so that's actually jogged my memory a lot, obviously, because I'm rewatching the thing. But it kind of, got me where I need to be in the headspace. So I think we've only got 2 more episodes, and then I get to start on the new stuff. So maybe after this, I can convince him to go and watch it. He's so flighty, whether I can get him to do anything or not. So I'm trying to watch it with him or whatever. Such is life. Oh my gosh. You know what I did last night is somebody I know, they hit me up and they said, hey, we've only got 3 guys. I need a 4th. Do you want to come and learn Magic the Gathering? And I was like, oh my God, no. But sure. So I went over there and did that. And I'm sure I'm being very polarizing here, but there's this flavor that they play called Commander. And it was just so confusing. Like there was like too many moving parts, and it's just like I could not keep track of any. Like it was just so damn confusing. But I can, I guess, see the appeal for some people. But holy cow, not for me and my smooth brain. It was not. I don't have enough wrinkles up there. It was not for me. So I'm trying to. A new thing I'm doing is not saying something is bad. I'm saying it's not for me, right? Because not my cup of tea. Not necessarily bad. It's great for other people, just not for me. So it was Magic was definitely not for me. Well, the agreement was I would play Magic with him, and he's got to come and play D&D with me and a bunch of 16 and 50-year-olds. So that's going to be an interesting experience. Hopefully, one a little bit more pleasant than I had trying to attempt Magic. Have you ever played Magic the Gathering?
I years ago I did play a couple card games, not really Magic, but I played a bunch of card games, like the original Pokemon trading card game. There's another game called Yu-Gi-Oh that I used to play, but that's like way faster paced than Magic. Magic was interesting, but it's significantly more expensive, and there's a lot more cards and a lot more formats, and it's like not really super casual. And there's a lot of investment. I had some friends that would like blow all of their money to build like whatever the current deck that was like topping tournaments, and would just bring it in and stomp everybody with their kind of like half-baked cards they put together.
He was talking about like how Magic, if you play standard, they put out like, I don't know, what do you call it? Like new sets of deck, almost like new seasons or something. Yeah. So it's like, as soon as they release that new one, all of your old cards are obsolete. You don't get to use them anymore. So you have to like continually buy this, which sounds like it turns into a big investment because I can't just buy packs. I got to buy tons of packs to build a good deck. And then it's like, holy cow, man, that's wild. So this Commander version, you can basically use cards from any version or mix them all together or whatever it happens to be. So I guess that seems to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I used to go to some tournaments. And so for games like Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, you'd have like a whole tournament cycle where there's like a couple decks that would just dominate the tournaments. And then right at the tail end of that like circuit, basically, they would update the ban list and they would cripple all those decks and then release like new decks where you'd have to like go buy all these cards and build these new decks and play that for the next format. So they're just making tons of money. Some of the big cards that were hard to pull were like $200-$300 a piece. I had a lot of friends who went there just to trade with like younger kids and rip them off when their parents weren't paying attention. I had a friend that just like, it was disgusting. He would go in as soon as he would get to the point in the tournament where he couldn't place like in the top 8 or top 10, which he would get like an invite to a regional or like a global tournament or something. He would just drop out because he knew an invite, and he would just rip all these kids off. By the end of the day, he would leave with like $2,000 worth of cash or like 6 binders of cards that he'd go sell on eBay. So it was wild. But yeah, it was for a short period of time. But a lot of my friends still are really into cards, like Magic especially.
That's cool.
It's pretty popular.
It seems like there's been a resurgence over quarantine, right? A lot of people locked inside trying to find stuff to do. So yeah, that's when they started picking it back up, and I guess they kind of are having fun with it, so they're continuing it on. I said, basically, please don't ever ask me to come again unless it's a dire emergency, in which case I will come and I will sit here and be useless. But other than that, like, please don't maybe. It may have kicked off another D&D group. We'll see over there, because one of the guys was a DM for like 10 years, and then most of his people got like, I don't know, they moved away or got married or had kids. You know how it goes. So he's kind of a DM without a home. So we might end up getting him to play with us a little bit. That might be interesting. So never know what'll come out of that. So what are you getting for Christmas?
On call and I see some family. Have my laptop with me though.
Yay! Well, you brought your laptop so you guys can play Jackbox games, right? Yeah. That's what it's
Probably.
there for.
I can't host it because then if an alert goes off, I gotta like go with the laptop. So then they can't play.
Well, just turn up the volume loud enough to where you can't hear the alert, and you're fine.
That would be worse.
Well, what did you get Mary for Christmas?
She wants another tattoo, so I told her I'd pay for her next tattoo 'cause that's all she wants.
What's it going to be?
I'm not sure yet. She's got several ideas, and each of them has a independent artist. Because she's all about like going on their Instagrams, looking at their artwork. She knows like where they're located, what tattoo shops. So she's like, she wants this tattoo from this artist who's in like Chicago area and is booked for like 6 months. And there's this other artist in a different tattoo shop who does a different.
So 6
style
months
that she wants to
what are
do.
the odds that she would book it to get this guy to do this one style, and by the time it comes around, she's like, no, I don't really want that anymore. She's changed her mind in some.
Oh, she's like, she knows. Like, she's put a lot of time in. She knows exactly where it's gonna go, like everything. I don't have to worry about that.
Fair enough. To each their own. Let's see. What am I get for Christmas? I want to get. So I've been seeing all these people review the new DJI mics. You know, like the DJI, the guys that do like drones and stuff like that, and they make like really good gimbals or whatever. They're now putting out a wireless mic set. So it's like 2 wireless mics that pull back to a little base station. They charge kind of like AirPods or whatever. You know, like your ear beans, they got a little case where they pop in. It's got a battery in there, so it'll like charge them and stuff. But they'll record a local track, and then they also stream it back to like the main base, and then that base you can like plug in your camera. So you can either have them record safety tracks, or you can have them record safety tracks while it's beaming that back. You can go straight into the camera, so you get your left-right audio as the remote mics or whatever. And they've got really nice like built-in microphones into them. And they've got the little dead cats you can pop on, like if you're kind of in a windy environment. But then they also have like a lapel mic jack on them too, so you can like pop in a lapel mic and then just pull it up on the person. So I think that'll be really nice for like just doing like on the scene interviews or whatever. Like obviously the audio is not going to be as clean as if we're sitting here with like a DAC and like these Shure mics or whatever, but also you could just you could travel so light if you're just carrying like a GoPro, a little mini tripod, and then this little set, which is, it's like smaller than the size of your cell phone, you know, like the little container or whatever. You could travel so light with that, hook somebody up, and then do like an interview really simply and get, from all of the testing, really clean audio with the backup track too. So that'd be cool. It'd be good for like recording some of the stuff I've been doing kind of in my own stuff on the side. I haven't actually done one physically in person yet. And
to the prison, feel like a YMI a murderer podcast.
Well, I don't know. Like I've been kind of waffling between doing ones live, and the last one I recorded, the audio just disappointed the shit out of me. And it was somebody who's actually here in town, so I could have physically gone. But then there's, like the Omicron spike happening or whatever. It's like, oh man, I don't really want to. But I was thinking too, like, because it's like, I don't know. Do I want to travel with like all this big heavy kit? I don't know. I'm torn. But if I had a nice convenient way to like really simply just throw it up really fast and then actually get quality results, I think I would be happy about that. But also, when conference season comes back around, it would be really easy to mic somebody up just instantly. So even in those conference environments where they're noisy, it would be like perfect, right? Because a really cool thing about them is they have a clip, but they also have a magnet. So you can just put the magnet on the inside of the shirt right there, and then it just, bam, snaps right to it, and it's just hanging right. Yeah, Salt Bay it right there. Bam. Yeah. So that way I can have one on me, have one on them. Base station goes right into the camera, boom, fired up, and then just record the interview really quick. We can all move around. I'm not having to worry about background noise, all that crap. So I think that would make that stuff really convenient. Like I think the quality on all that stuff would go up like instantaneously. And it would be a really easy way to do. And it's not super breaking the bank. And also, since it's like an electronic device, I can write off on my taxes. So, like on my business taxes or whatever. So, might as well. I don't think they're going to come out until January. So, we got them pre-ordered. But whatever. I can wait that long. Seeing as though I'm not actually going to be like, doing any of this stuff in person. So, that's what I am getting for Christmas.
As soon as those come in, you're going to be booking interviews.
Dude, that is the hardest thing to do is book interviews. Like it's for every 10 people I contact, I maybe get one if I'm lucky. So and for every 10 people that like don't want to do it, only one person actually responds back and says no thank you. Otherwise it's just like complete silence. So it's a lot of work tracking people down. I'm gonna keep at it though. I told myself I would do it for a year. This is the year mark because it was January. Well, it was actually about this time last year that I first started contacting people. So I've hit the year mark and I'm still enjoying it. So I guess I'll do it another year. I don't know. We'll just keep at it. We'll see what happens. It's funny. It kind of like my energy levels come in waves. So with like this impending vacation, I don't think I'm going back to work until like the 4th or something. Yeah. That's all well, it's like Red Hat does like a company-wide shutdown the week of the 27th. So every employee just gets a free week off anyway. So I'm just going to put the week. So next week I'm taking that off. And then the 3rd, they're giving that off as well for New Year's Day. So yeah, the 4th is when I officially go back. And they keep warning me. They're like, hey, you really need to take your vacation. Like I have so much saved up that it's like use it or lose it scenario. So I really need to like start using it.
Darn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll take the time off and then I'll make Ansible YouTube videos.
I mean, I'm going to do that anyway. But I don't know. I guess that's kind of what I got going on. My wife is so hard to shop for. There's like absolutely nothing she wants. Because generally, if she wants something, she'll just get it. You know, it's no big deal. Yep. So what I decided to do is I was just browsing around and I came up with this idea of making a copper bracelet, but like acid etching some words in it and then like putting some like black acrylic inside the etched out parts to like make it stand out or whatever. So I'm going to give that a try. I've never acid etched anything. So I've got like some ferrochloric acid. I've got some citric acid that's supposed to kick it up. And I've got some copper bracelet blanks. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll post some pictures in the Slack as I make progress. I was thinking about videoing the whole process, but I was like, I don't feel like it. It slows everything down so much. Of course, once I get into it, I might decide I want to. I don't know. Hey, we'll see.
If you're working with like acid, I'm sure you've got like time constraints on like how long it can be applied in between trying to like record and capture, and you never know how that's going to go.
Speaking of interesting things, we mentioned like my other podcast. I found somebody named Addie Starr in Canada, and she's a wrestler. She's a female wrestler. She lives in Ottawa. I found her because her picture, like her profile picture on Twitter, it was like somebody sitting in this pile of stuff. I was like, what is that? Apparently her shtick is she throws down a big tub of Legos and like suplexes people into it. Yeah. So it's like her gimmick. She like body slams people into Legos. And
so you got to get the DJI set. You got to go out there. Get Legos.
It's going to be ASMR of me getting smashed into Legos. That's what the people, it's not what they want. It's what they need. It's what they require. Yeah. But not only is she a wrestler that, slams people into Legos, but her day job is she's a school teacher. I know that face, that reaction. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
So talk about interesting people. I think that one's going to be pretty interesting. I've tried some people are such a mystery. Like I was doing research, like I found out what her real name is, not just her stage name. I was like trying to research her. she's like a ghost. Some people just, I don't know, you can't really find a lot. So it'll just be discovery in the moment, which is fun too, right? Because then you're just like absolutely surprised by everything. It might be.
That'll be interesting.
Anyway, yeah, this one was light, but we managed to fill in plenty of time with shenanigans. It's I consider this the Christmas episode because this is going to be, or a holiday episode, or whatever it is that you celebrate this time of year. I like to think of it as not going to work for 2 weeks episode. So that's fantastic. That face. I'm sorry, bud. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to rub it in, but I kind of did, but not a lot. Just a little. I just wanted to see that look on your face for a second, so I could feel better and feel superior, and that's accomplished. But yeah. So this is going to be kind of the last one we not do for the year. Maybe is this the last one we do for the year? Let me look at the calendar really quick. Yeah, actually, this will be the last one we do for the year. So this is although the next one's going to come out like almost on the 1st, so it'll be really close. So we'll just make that one the New Year's one. But in all honesty, this is it. Thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate you guys sticking around. I always get sort of nostalgic around this time of year. And actually, January of 2022 will be 10 years of this podcast. So, yeah. Almost as old as one of my children. It's wacky wild. Been doing this a really long time. I never expected to be doing it this long. And I guess in January we should do kind of like a 10-year episode. Maybe try and get a whole, oh man, that would be a hot mess to try and get everybody in here. I don't know. Maybe it would be worth it. Schedule a day and try and get like absolutely everybody we possibly can. That would be, I think that would be a bad idea. But yeah, coming around. Appreciate you guys. Like I say, I get kind of nostalgic at this time of year for this sort of stuff. So appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody participating. All my friends, everybody who's lended a hand here and there. Appreciate all of you. Nick, thank you for popping in today, bud. If folks out on the internet want to get a hold of you, how would you have them do that?
You can email me at nick.a@hey.com or the Little Brothers
Wisp. Baller. If you want to find me, I'm Greg at gregsoul.com, or you can go to gregsoul.com where I blog semi-regularly nowadays. Probably another easy way to find me is on the Slack, as Nick mentioned. That's patreon.com/thebrotherswisp. You can get access to the Slack and all of the brain power, all of the, not smooth brains like me, I'm like a manatee, but all the deep, heavy wrinkles, the crevasses, the all of it, all of the good stuff. The hive mind, you get access to it, and you become part of the Borg as well. So one of us. I was talking about cults earlier. Now you know why. I'm working it out, brother. They say cult plus time equals religion. That's just a new religion. That's all it is. Give it a minute. All right. Thank you, listeners. Questions, comments, anybody you want us to talk to, anybody you're sick of hearing, so AKA me, let us know. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Pop over here and hit stop. Just